Minshew Mania. Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and the silver and black named Gardner Minshew, their starting quarterback. So now I'm looking at Antonio Pierce, I'm looking at Tom Telesco, and I'm saying, we need to do these things before the regular season gets a moving here. But guess what? We got a preseason game. I don't know if my body, my mind can handle another preseason game like we saw last week against the Dallas Cowboys. And you know what? We're going up against the San Francisco 49ers. Our 49ers report host, Chase Sr., I want to show him who still runs the Bay. And heck, the other time was, I'm going to say like 2 weeks ago, I was talking about my fiance Alex. She was out in the Bay and she goes, I saw a lot of 49ers fans out there. I want to show everybody that Raider Nation still owns the Bay. So hit that subscribe button and let's help take down the 49ers report in a sub battle this week. So again, Gardner Minshew was named the starting quarterback, and I think because Antonio Pierce did that, he's starting now to move forward towards the regular season. But you know what? The Raiders, they still got a lot of unknown questions, and I want the silver and black to do these things before the regular season gets underway. First thing I'm doing, and I'll admit this, I said that, I would check in with Davante Adams, and if you haven't seen his Instagram story yet, please go out there and check it out. I also want to say that today's show was presented by Panda Sups, which, if you need some protein, I got the strawberry, I got the campfire s'mores. That link is going to be available to you down below, pandasups.com. Use code Raiders for 25% off. So I'm going to check in with Davante Adams. Why? I just want to make sure that him and Antonio Pierce are all right. I'll admit, I made this video up, and then last night on Instagram and on Twitter, I put out a video where Davante Adams tagged Antonio Pierce, called him the GOAT on his social media. So I honestly think that both of those guys are doing okay. Because right now the national media is pushing, oh no, Gardner Minshew's the starting quarterback. Is that what Davante Adams wanted? And I think that they are really pushing this thing in terms of, is Tay good with Minshew being a QB1? All I'm going to say is, since the time that we've seen that preseason game, Davante Adams has posted an Instagram story of Gardner Minshew hitting Trey Tucker down the field, and that said, good. And then you got Antonio Pierce last night with Davante Adams sharing their Instagram stories where Davante called him the GOAT. My point is there was a lot of concern, and I was somebody that was concerned with the fact of Davante not wanting to play in that preseason game. Antonio Pierce said all the starters are going to play, and I just wanted to make sure there was no friction. Because if you're going to go into this season in a year that, let's face it, is a must-win season for Antonio Pierce, I don't want there to be any more hiccups. And I want us to keep our focus on winning football games. And I think Davante's a team captain. He's somebody that everybody looks up to. But I know this, if Davante's not a part of this team, that tells me that this team's not trying to win. As long as 17 is in silver and black, this team is in win now mode. No more tank talk, nothing about that. If Davante Adams is on this team, they're going to try to win football games. So give me your unbiased opinion right now. Give me a yes, give me a no down in the comments section. Will Davante Adams end this season with the Las Vegas Raiders? My answer coming up after this YouTube ad break. If the Raiders are anything worse than 4-5 by the NFL trade deadline, which the final game before the deadline is against the Cincinnati Bengals, Week 9 on November 3rd. The deadline then is on November 5th, which is also Election Day, which there's no way that day could be any crazier. And that's at 4 p.m. Eastern time. If the Raiders are 4-5 or better, Davante Adams is going to stay a Raider unless, like, a team like the New York Jets or something like that offers 2 first-round picks or something crazy for Tay. I do really believe that he's going to be a Raider this entire season because I do think, despite some of these quarterback struggles we've seen in the preseason, this is still going to be a good football team that's going to be somewhere around 500 throughout the majority of this season. Let's go to the next thing, and this is a story that I've talked about a few times on the Raiders Report, and I'm not trying to make anything out of nothing. That's the last thing I'm trying to do. But I do want the Raiders to check in with Colton Miller on 2 fronts. The first front is he healthy? Is he ready to go? Is he ready to be a starting left tackle for the entire season? Because when your quarterback is Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell, and if you don't have a QB that can protect that, or a left tackle that can protect that QB's blind side, it's going to be a long season. And, if we're going to talk about the fact that our quarterbacks maybe aren't the best, right, which is an honest statement. Raiders probably have one of the worst quarterback rooms in the NFL right now. You at least need to make sure that you have a solid offensive line to give those to give those guys time to throw. The other part of this equation is Kolton Miller is right now dealing with a little bit of a contract issue, and I don't know if Colton thinks it's a contract issue. I don't know if the Raiders think it is, but there will be something that I'm going to look at where Kolton Miller's got $0 million guaranteed on his deal this year and next year. He's one of the best left tackles in the NFL when he's 100% healthy, but yet he's paid as the 17th or 18th highest paid tackle. I've met Miller. I've done a competitive wing eating contest with Colton. He is legitimately one of the most laid-back, awesome dudes that I have ever met. He does a lot of amazing things in that community. But sometimes at that certain age, if he's still looking for that extra paycheck and he's dealing with the injuries that he's been dealing with, maybe he wants a brand new contract, and that's something that I think that the Raiders need to at least got to figure out here with Kolton Miller. I'm not saying he's sitting out because of the contract issue, but it has at least crossed my mind. If Miller is not healthy, or if Miller does want a brand new deal and that's why he's not getting out there on the practice field, I say that because I know he's recovering from that shoulder, but I was also told that he was going to be ready to go by training camp. So now I'm just kind of going like, well, what the hell's going on here? If Kolton Miller, for whatever reason, is unavailable, or if you check in with him and he's like, man, I don't know if I'm going to be ready for week 1. You can't go up against the Chargers. Then you can't go up against the Ravens in the following week if your offensive line isn't healthy. Guess what? I'm going to check in with Jackson Powers-Johnson too. And if either of those guys gives me a little bit of insecurity, yeah, I'm hoping that Darren Munford can play on the left side. Yeah, I'm hoping that DJ Glaze, the rookie, can play right tackle. But there's also 3 left tackles out there on the free agent market that it wouldn't surprise me if the Raiders at least picked up the phone, gave him a call. DJ Humphries, Charles Leno are the 2 best right now. David Bakhtiari just has a lot more playing experience with Lou Getsy in that system, though Bakhtiari has not been able to prove to me that he's healthy. Again, I'm going to look at DJ Humphries. I'm going to look at Charles Leno as the guys that I would potentially sign. Now let's go to the 2 moves that I really do want the Raiders to make and figure it out in some way. Obviously, they have a lot of different players that you can extend. You can extend Malcolm Koonce. Quite frankly, I don't think Malcolm's going to take that contract extension unless you give him $18 million per year on an extension, which is way, way too much for what he's worth, so he's going to wait for free agency. Then you got a Marcus Epps. I'm going to wait on Marcus Epps. Nate Hobbs, he's got to prove to me that he can stay healthy. I've seen enough from Tre'von Moehrig this offseason and the preseason. You saw him take that step forward. Multiple coaches have said that he's going to be one of the stars, the keys to this team. I have said since the Raiders drafted him out of TCU, I think that he's one of the best safeties in the NFL. He's going to be regarded as one of the best safeties in the NFL after this year. But because we have so many unknowns and so many free agents next offseason, I do think that it's smart to try to lock in some of these players right now. That way we can move forward. And because Epps is 29 years old, I don't really think that they're going to end up bringing him back. And they like what they got in Isaiah Pola-Mao. So you look at Pola-Mao maybe taking Marcus Epps' spot next season. But in order for me to feel confident in that, I still want Tre'von Moehrig there as a free safety to help out Pola-Mao just a little bit, understand what his role is. And because he's only 25 years old, because he can drop back as a free safety, because he can go up near the box and play like a strong safety, that versatility in a Patrick Graham defense is very, very important. So coming up here, I got 3 more things that the Raiders need to do. I should also say that I would give Tre'von Moehrig a 2-year, $18 million extension. I believe I had somewhere in there like $14 million of guaranteed money. That's what I would look to do. It puts him somewhere in that near the top 10 safeties, and it locks him in for another few years, tying him with a guy like Max Crosby. Before I tell you the 3 things that I want the Raiders to do after naming Gardner Minshew their starting quarterback, I got this brand new Campfire S'mores protein from Panda Sups, and it's been mind-blowingly good. If you're somebody where you've heard Jeremy and I talk a lot about Ninja Creamies, if you got a Ninja Creamy, this is an absolute. I will admit, this is a protein that I like to mix with milk, but Panda Sups' all-new Campfire S'mores Fuel Premium Protein, it is amazingly mind-blowing. It's an enticing chocolate blend with many freeze-dried marshmallows along with chocolate and graham cracker cookie gems. This isn't just the best-tasting protein that Panda Sups has made. It's a treat that can double as a dessert. Whether you have it as a snack, post-workout, or a late-night snack, 30 grams of protein has never tasted so good. And, you know, I think for a lot of people that watch this show, you probably already know you got to go use code Raiders at pandasups.com. Those links are going to be available to y'all down in the comments section. But I'm also somebody that, especially in the summertime, as y'all can see, it's hot here in Dallas. I do like to mix protein also with water. So, like, after a workout, I'll mix it with water. I love this strawberry one right now, which you can see I've been absolutely crushing it. If I'm waiting for, like, that late-night snack, or if Chugs and I have lunch, let's say, and you're like, I just need something a little bit sweet to crave that, you know, hit that sweet tooth, You add this with a little bit of milk, and I'm telling you, it's going to fix that sweet craving. PandaSubs.com, code Raiders, 25% off. Let's go to the next thing that I think that the Raiders need to do. It's extend Robert Spillane. I'm not saying that from a priority standpoint that Moehrig and Spillane are the most important because it's a safety and a linebacker, and I would make the argument that those two positions in the NFL may be the least important in the league. So, Mitch, why are these the two guys to do it? It's because it's not going to break the bank. It's not going to break the bank going out and extending these two guys, two players who are captains on this team, and I do think that Moehrig's got a shot. Robert Spillane wears that green dot. He's coming off a career year, and Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco asked three players to speak to Raiders rookies back in May, right before rookie minicamp got started. Maxx Crosby, Davante Adams, Robert Spillane. That tells me everything I need to know of what they think of a guy like Spillane. So I'm going to offer him a 2-year deal, $19 million, $12 million guaranteed. It's by far the most money he's ever been offered, and quite frankly, it is a little bit much for a linebacker of his skill set. But again, he proved me wrong last season. He was one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL, and I do think that this scheme fits him really well. On top of that, Divine Diablo, going to be a free agent next offseason. Luke Masterson, I'm telling y'all right now, is not a lock to make this roster. And then also you go back and you got Tommy Eichenberg. They saw something in Eichenberg, and I think Eichenberg, Robert Spillane, this two linebacker set is definitely something you're going to look at. And coming off a year of 148 tackles, 3.5 sacks, if he has another year like this and he hits the open market, it's going to cost you more money. So right now, the Silver and Black have about $34.5 million in salary cap space. Based off the people that I talked to, it does sound like they're trying to save up some of that money for I'm just going to tell you, a big offseason next year. But like AP and Telesco do need to start planning at least a little bit now, just because of how many of their star-studded players on defense will be testing that market. And I just want to keep Moehrig. I want to keep Spillane. You have your two big guys on the offensive line, and then you figure it out with Jack Jones and Nate Hobbs, and you could extend those guys halfway through the year. Let's go to the next thing that the Raiders need to do. Got to move Tyrie Wilson to defensive tackle. I have been a defender of Tyree. Chugs has been a defender of Tyree, and I said something on our, we'll call it Sunday Overreaction show, and I'm just telling y'all right now, I'm not saying that I was told by a source. I'm not saying that Tyree told me anything. This is just me doing this thing for as long as I have, and I'm looking you in the cameras right now. If you were to ask me, Mitch, out of all the Raiders players on the team right now, who's like the most likely to get traded? I think it's Tyree Wilson. He was drafted number 7 overall by McDaniels and Ziegler. And again, this is coming from me, who's been somebody who I still hope that Tyree can put it together. I just don't think he's ever going to be able to put it together as an edge rusher. He doesn't have the first step. He doesn't have the acceleration. He doesn't have the pass rush moves to be able to win on a consistent basis in the NFL. What does he do well? He's a power rusher. He's a bull rusher. You just tell him to put his head down and push. And that's not what you drafted him to be. It doesn't look like this draft is going to just draft picks working at least now. Can he get better as the year goes on? Yeah, obviously. But when you look at the PFF grades against backups in Minnesota, against backups against Dallas, this is a guy that's getting beat a little bit. And for somebody who is as well connected as he is in Texas, somebody who went to Texas Tech, somebody whose agent is here in Dallas, somebody who just went up against the Dallas Cowboys, a team where I'm telling you the Cowboys have shown interest in Tyree Wilson before. It would not surprise me if this week, quite frankly, this week or even next week, if we're like, well, I can't believe the Raiders traded away Tyree Wilson. And just because he's not that dependable as an edge, I thought Charles Snowden looked pretty good the other day, and he's a player that I know this organization likes. Ellerson Smith, I thought, has stepped up, but we have to be able to face the facts here and say, we really only have Maxx Crosby and Janarius Robinson, or Maxx Crosby and Malcolm Koonce as reliable edge rushers, and you have another guy in Janarius. But from a defensive tackle standpoint, we were even hoping that our DTs would play a little bit better than what they have in the preseason. Wilkins, John Jenkins, Adam Butler, I have confidence in those guys. Byron Young, he stinks. Matthew Butler, can't depend on him. Nesta Jade Silvera, Marquand McCall, those are big-time question marks. We need to move Tyree Wilson to defensive tackle because it's just not going to happen at defensive end. I hope he proves me wrong. I hope that he ends up getting 8 sacks like Chugs and I have already said. But one thing that we got to do a better job here as the nation, one thing I got to do a better job as a content creator is not being afraid to give a take, and people got to be okay with the idea of us switching up our minds. You're allowed to make a take, and then you're allowed to switch from it. If you just continuously say and do the same things over and over and over again, right? That's the definition of insanity. I might look insane right now with my new haircut, but I don't feel it, man. If you want the Raiders to move Tyrie Wilson to defensive tackle, I want you to click this like button right now. Tyree, I believe in you, and I want you to be a member of this team. But you got to start showing the nation here a little bit because it's getting hard to defend you, and it's time to move you to defensive tackle. Let's go to my next point then. You got an edge rusher. The Raiders got to be able to get after the quarterback at a higher rate. And again, Mitch, it's only the preseason. I hear you, but I'm not even talking about the preseason. I'm talking about we need another player outside of Maxx Crosby and Malcolm Koonce that can win. Somebody that can go out and get after the quarterback. And if I want to move Tyrie Wilson into defensive tackle, that means we got to add another edge rusher. So to me, there's one guy that you could potentially sign in free agency. He's got to prove that he's healthy. Yannick Ngakoue, who was a good friend of Maxx Crosby, was a member of the team back in 2021. Didn't have a very good year last season, was a little bit banged up. But you know what? I would rather have Yannick Ngakoue on this team to just give me a little bit of more pass rushing help because that's all I'm looking for. I need somebody that can come in on third down. I need somebody that gives me 25, 30% of the snaps, and Yannick Ngakoue is somebody to at least keep in mind. Now, the other players that I would look at for trade candidates are Peyton Turner's going to be cheap for New Orleans. If you want to spend big, go trade for Hassan Reddick, but you got to know deep down that you're not bringing back Malcolm Koonce. DeMarvin Leal is kind of a hybrid player, so if you still want to keep Tyrie Wilson on the outside, maybe Leal could play inside-outside. The player, though, that I actually legitimately would go out and target in a trade is Darrell Taylor. He was a member of the Tennessee Volunteers for college, but I talked to our Seahawks host here at Chat Sports, and he's like, if you're looking for somebody that can go in there 25, 30% of the snaps, and I feel like I've been looking for a Benson Mayowa-style player back in 2019 with Maxx Crosby, to me, that's what Darrell Taylor is. It's not going to cost you a lot. You give up a little bit, and then you move on. That's what the Raiders need to do now that they named Gardner Minshew their starting quarterback. So if you want to see these bad boys one more time, if you want to take a screenshot, you can tag me on Twitter. You can tag me on Instagram. I'm at Mitchell Renz 365. I will continuously say that I do think it was the right decision to put Gardner as the starter. You also have a reliable backup in Aiden in case things don't go well. Keeping the starting job, that's going to be the hard part. Getting named the starter, that's the easy part. But the Raiders also, because they named a starting quarterback, they also have to show me that they're getting ready for the regular season. And these things need to get done before the regular season happens.